Hello everyone, it is Erin Flito, and today I am here with a 10 more types video. And this is a little bit different because normally I do a 10 types video, but this is actually a part 2 of one that I've done previously. But it's been a long time since I've actually done that particular one. So much has changed. So I just thought I would do a 10 types of financial trackers for your bullet journal. So let's go ahead and dive on in. I am using my Archer and Olive notebook, my Archer and Olive Calliograph in the Barely Blue color. I also use a Muji and a Tombow. So let's go ahead and get started. The first one that I have here today is an annual overview. So regardless of what you do month to month, how you decide to track things, one of the best things I can ever tell you is to have an annual overview when it comes to tax time. So for me in particular, I really like this for businesses because a lot of that is calculated myself. But it can also be useful for people that have multiple types of income streams and things like that. Just having one place so that once you're doing taxes and you calculate everything out, you know what the correct amount of income versus expenses is. It's also really helpful because you can figure out what your in versus out is. For example, you generally speaking want the money in to be more than the money out. However, if you've accrued a lot of debt, maybe you had a surgery, maybe you have student loans, maybe things like that. You want to make sure that your income versus expenses, your income is obviously more than your expenses. You don't want to be racking up credit card debt. I know that's not feasible for everyone, but I'm sure that everyone is striving to at least do that. But you can have a debt column here as well so that you can see how you're chipping away with that. So even if your expenses are more, maybe it's because you're chipping away at your debt. So income, expenses, having a column for debt, a total down here, and then being able to see your money in versus money out. Number 2 is a 52-week challenge. This idea I actually did in my first video. However, I thought that this would be fun because it's kind of a challenge to every single week to put some money away. It doesn't matter how much it is, just to put something away. It's nice if you maybe set a minimum and a maximum, but that way it can vary depending on how challenging things are in a certain month. For example, in November, my income typically is more than, say, July. That's because for my business, I tend to have more sales because of Black Friday. So when I am putting money away, I would probably want to look at the weeks after Black Friday to put some of that money away versus a July where maybe things have slowed down. So setting a challenge and then recording the date and how much you put away for each week of the year. And then to set a goal and then how much you actually saved by the end of that. I only have 30 here, but that's because I was lazy. So you would set all 52 weeks a goal and an actual. Moving on to number 3, we have a debt log. So you all have probably seen this type of spread before. I thought it would be fun to not only compare what your payoff goal is for 2023, but what the total amount of debt is. Because typically, especially if you're talking student loans, something mortgage, technically speaking, all of those kinds of stuff, you have a total amount, and maybe that's accruing interest, maybe it's not. Who knows how things are going right now, but logging what your payments are and what the total amount of debt is for the amount of time that you plan to pay it off. That way you're including the interest and things like that. So say I am currently $12,000 in debt, but by the end of the time that I'm paying it, it will have amounted to $30,000. I know it's stupid. I know. But you want to take those things into consideration. So then what your payoff goal is for this year versus what your total debt payoff is. I just have like a little mason jar here. You could do a little thermometer. You could do gumballs in a gumball machine. I've seen tons of different cool debt logs. But I thought it would be fun to compare what your payoff goal is for this year and then what your total payoff goal is. And then having the payments and when you made those payments and how much over on the right hand side. The next one is kind of frustrating in a way. I have a 50-30-20 monthly budget. So this is the ideal budget. I think most of us know that an ideal budget isn't really how things are going right now. Expenses are really, really high, things like that. But it's nice to compare yourself against the ideal to see how close you are, because you actually might be closer than you think. I know a lot of people have kind of cut out the whole 20% thing, and it's basically just like 50-50 because things cost a lot of money. But basically it's 50% mandatory. These are things like home, because you are paying your rent, if you're paying gas, water, things like that. Groceries, you have to eat. Car to get to and from work, your car payment and gas, things like that. The want category is more like you are eating out instead of getting groceries. You're going to events. You're making clothing purchases. Some of that stuff may be actually necessary, but it's not technically a mandatory bill. Like, you won't get in trouble if you don't do that. And then the 20% is savings and debt. So for example, I have student loans and your 401k or your Roth IRA. Those are, at least in the US, I don't know about other countries, but 401k is basically your retirement savings. What the calculations are by your income, say, and this I actually took from Forbes, I believe, is $4,000. Say that's your income. You divide that in half. So your mandatory cost shouldn't be more than $2,000. Your want shouldn't be more than $1,200, and your savings and debt shouldn't be more than $800. Now, again, I know that this isn't realistic, but I thought that I would share the 50-30-20. I did do that in the previous one. However, things are much, much different in the world than when I did that in 2018. So I just kind of wanted to acknowledge that and also talk about comparing it to the ideal and seeing how close you're getting. So that is a monthly budget. You could also monthly budget just in general. Maybe there are things that you can do to reduce, say your gas. Maybe instead of driving your car, you are taking mass transit. Maybe you are carpooling with a coworker, things like that. So maybe there are things that you can reduce there. So I don't know. It's just something to keep in mind. The 401k calculator. I never included investments in 401k in my previous video, so I did want to acknowledge that. This calculator is actually from Bankrate. So again, this is a very US based model. I am sure if you search retirement something or other and your country's name, you can find a similar calculator. I searched for a 401k calculator, and I found all these parameters that you can change to see how much you would contribute, how much your employer would match, and how much money you will have by the time you plan to retire. Now, for me, I am too young. I probably will not get Social Security. Let's just be honest with ourselves. So me having a good 401k is very, very important because I won't have that to fall back on, which stinks. But honestly, it's just the way things are going right now. I know this video kind of stinks to think about some of these things, but I thought I would do it anyways. And then I have a balance by year, just in case, okay, I don't want to actually wait until I'm 65 to retire or even older. Maybe I want to try to retire at 60. Can I get by for this balance when I am 60 years old? It's something to think about, especially if you have a spouse and you combine those. Maybe that is something you can do. I didn't mark down the amounts down here, but these are just like some random figures. I would go to Bankrate and put in your own numbers of what you have saving and things like that. That way you can calculate your own. Those are just random. Number 6 is monthly income logs. This I like because for people that have multiple income streams, for example, I have my job, which I have an income from. Say this is a lucky month where I get 3 paychecks, and a business income and what those revenue streams are. That way I can total it out. And this again is really, really helpful for when you want to go back to your annual overview and put in your income. So breaking it down by how much and then having a total. I know that this is extremely, extremely helpful for me, particularly on the business side when I am putting in my taxes. So that is monthly income logs. Number 7 is expenses by categories. Again, I did it by my business, but this is something you can obviously do based on your own categories. Maybe it's eating out, maybe it's groceries, maybe it's home expenses, clothing, things like that. So I have shipping, paying the affiliate and staff, software, and materials. So you can see I have a list with the dot next to it of what the actual expense is, and then a column for costs. So I have U.S. Postal Service, for example, for shipping, or Pirate Ship for shipping. Adobe, that is the method that I edit my videos, and I do Photoshop and things like that. So those are important. Maybe it's materials, so my ink for my printers, buying sticker paper, and then again, monthly pay for affiliate and staff people. And then a breakdown of the percentages of those costs and the total cost by expenses. That way, again, I can fill it in my annual overview for my business. Number 8 is an investment tracker. Now, I am never going to tell you what to invest in. That's just not my jam, not what I know. And honestly, it's literally not allowed. So I just put blah for my investment, what the app you used, what the fees are associated with that app, what your purchase date is, and if you sell it, what that sale date is. And then did you sell on a high or did you sell on a low? Meaning, did you sell for more than you purchased for, or did you sell for less than you purchased for? So this is a good idea just to kind of have a running log of what's open and what's not. That way you can refer back to it, especially again, come tax time, you have to report on any sales that you make. You know, they always send you the information, so it's not that hard, but it's also important to keep track of, because if you do it wrong, even though the IRS and the states know how much income you made, but you still have to calculate it out anyways. I will never understand that system, but regardless, there we are. So an investment tracker. And if you want to also do an investment tracker for what you are invested in 401k wise, for example, there's like different like L funds and G funds and blah, blah, blah. Maybe you want to keep track of what your percentages are for what your 401k is invested in. Number 9 is a look ahead spread. So I love this idea for pre-planning when you're going to be spending more money than usual. For example, in January, it's my mom's birthday. What is my budget and how much should I actually spend on her birthday? If I am taking a trip in June, you know, maybe it's a vacation, how much I'm going to be spending, how much I actually spent. So getting an idea ahead of time, that way, if I am planning a trip in June, I can start saving money in January, like putting a little bit extra money aside so that I can be prepared when June comes along. So getting a look ahead of, oh, here's like the events, the birthdays, the holidays, things like that, that would be more expensive. And where can I save money, more money in a month previous to those larger expenditures? For example, maybe in Christmas, this is my budget and this is my actual, but I start purchasing back in May and I purchase a little bit of something every day. That way it's not just a big whopping $500 out of my bank account in December. So kind of preparing, so a look ahead spread for your other expenses. And then the last one I have today is a bills checklist. So this is just a running list of, here are my bills, this is how much I owe on them, and how often do I have to pay them. For example, your bill is your mortgage. This is how much you pay a month. You pay it monthly. And then I'm checking off every single month that I make that, or I pay that bill. Versus water, that may be $30 and is quarterly. So I'm not paying that every month. I would only be paying it January, April, August, you know? So keeping that in mind when you are paying quarterly rather than monthly. So this is just a general list of what bills you have and when you have them. So those are all 10 types of finance trackers. I will link my original video down below. Again, my style has changed a lot, but it does have a ton of views. So hopefully that video is also helpful to you, and this one was as well. So thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Bye, everyone.